SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Laurel is ready to welcome teams and families from across the Southeast for the Diamond Youth World Series. From July 15th through August 3rd, enjoy championship softball, baseball, and cheer with incredible young athletes right here in Laurel.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
All right, we got the missing headset somewhere in the SuperTalk headquarters. Rhino does not have on his head at this time his normal headset. And I know that can be frustrating because you get accustomed to them, don't you?
Oh, yeah, especially the sound of them because they don't even make that headset anymore. They just grown legs and walked off.
Dang. Got to be in here somewhere, man. We're all buckled up, ready to go. Prentiss Harrell, Circuit Court Judge for the 15th Judicial District of Mississippi, joins MidDays at 11:05, talking about the impact of the drug courts. Interesting. So that should be an engaging conversation. The markets, I was off Friday, of course. And so I take off one day and the markets go to hell. What in the wide world of sports? Huge sell-off on the NASDAQ, closing down 1,100 points. I think that's because it had such a run-up in the month of May. And then folks were getting some liquidity to buy into the big SpaceX IPO later this week. I'm not sure I've ever seen an IPO generate this much media attention, ever. And this is expected based on the price at which the company will go public. This is expected to make Elon Musk the first trillionaire in the world. Now, I've thought for some time that eventually we would mint a trillionaire. I just didn't think it'd be this soon. I always kind of figured it'd be maybe an infant in a stroller somewhere that would grow up and achieve that level of wealth through time. But no, it looks like Elon Musk is on track to earn that distinction. Let's see, going public. Is it Friday? I think it's Friday when SpaceX, in fact, does hit the tape. This could be something, man. Really. So, but the markets are up today. Just to get you started there, the Dow up 217. The NASDAQ also in the green. Your funny money's making a little recovery up to, $3,300? So it's doing a little better, but it's been taking a beating of late, as you know. Yeah, the NASDAQ now up comfortably in the green, 455 points. Some are up, some are down in the big tech names. We got to start out also by letting you know that today is tax filing day. Recall, Rhino, that after we had the storms come through a couple of months ago, the IRS announced, hey, you folks in Mississippi, you don't have to file by April 15th. It would have been really difficult given the timing of that storm. You can hold off until today, June the 8th. And initially, we didn't really get the same change in filing date from the Mississippi Department of Revenue, but they quickly did adjust and align with the Internal Revenue Service. So today is the day that your taxes are due. I think a lot of people probably already took care of that. But if you haven't, you have until today, and you're still good to go. That's where we are on that situation. The United States Postal Service, it's raising stamp prices again. They will take effect on July the 12th. A first-class mail forever stamp is going up 4 cents from 78 cents to 82 cents. The old postcards from 61 to 65. International postcards and letters also rising in price from $1.70 to $1.75. But the United States Post Office says, sorry, that ain't enough. This won't solve our financial problems. Quote, we are running out of cash, and we have to make trade-offs. Postmaster General David Steiner told lawmakers earlier this year, quote, we would love to have brand new trucks driving through the neighborhoods safely, but we don't have enough cash to do it. The United States Postal Service is also facing a bit of criticism over a new rule that's being proposed, not active yet, that would create nationwide standards for absentee voting by mail. Remember the president? He basically said, look, you shall not, I'm reading from the order, the USPS shall not transmit mail-in or absentee ballots from any individual unless those individuals have been enrolled on a state-specific list. And that state-specific list, as you know, is supposed to be one compiled that says only these people should get a ballot or have their ballot transmitted via the mail because they're the only ones that are eligible. In other words, if you're dead, that would be a pretty good indication you shouldn't get a ballot. Not that that's stopped some of the Democrats from harvesting ballots ostensibly cast by, impossibly cast, we should say, by dead people. But, of course, you've got to be a U.S. citizen. You're watching what's happening in California. It was predictable, was it, Rhino, looking at the mayor's race there? You had incumbent Democrat Karen Bass. Keep in mind, in California, it's a jungle primary. There are no partisan primaries. Everybody is on the ballot. The top two, if not one candidate, receives 50% plus one of the votes goes to a runoff. Now, until like yesterday, that looked like it was Karen Bass and Spencer Pratt, the reality TV star that just talks common sense. We got problems here in Los Angeles. I want to clean them up. But, unfortunately, Pratt has been overtaken, and it looks like that the far-left nutcase socialist Democratic City Council member Nithya Raman will advance to the runoff in November for Los Angeles mayor. Bass leads all the candidate with 34% of the vote, but it looks like that she is taking over. Man, something's going on. I'm not buying it. I'm really not. And it's because of all these absentee votes, you know, that came in over the last couple of days. Bass has 34%, Rahman 27.12%, Pratt 26.69%. And what's really curious about this is since these absentee ballots have been flowing in, the numbers for the crazy councilwoman, Rahman, have increased dramatically, while the other two candidates, in terms of the percentage of the total vote, while the other two candidates remain relatively flat. Something looks fishy Does it not indicate, Rhino, that now more than ever we must pass the SAVE Act in this country? You know, even if there's nothing going on here, you're suspicious. Nobody has any confidence in the integrity of our elections. We should do everything necessary to restore. Maybe not even restore. How about establish full integrity in our elections process? It's pretty important. Because here's the thing, we're supposed to be of, by, and for the people. But if we're not accurately reflecting the people's votes, it's not of, by, and for the people. It's of, by, and for the crooks who are engaged in electioneering and fraud. But this is what happens when you have this mass mail out of ballots. Mail-in voting is already problematic in that it increases risk, certainly over in-person, but we must point out, in Florida, double the number of mail-in ballots account for double the number of in-person, including our president who votes by mail. But it's a different process. They don't mail a ballot to everybody on the rolls like they do in California. That's how ballots just end up all over the place. They are captured and then they are fabricated coming right back.
If you're feeling anxious.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. So, you know, it seems like every day when you discover or there's some sort of anomaly is exposed relative to the public sector. In this case, it's the elections. Just looks fishy. But the idea that you can mail a ballot out to everyone on the rolls and expect to have a fair and true and accurate election, mail them out. Now, maybe if the rolls were clean, but when's the last time we had clean rolls? And the same risk would occur here because we know we've got work to do to clean our rolls up. And we did pass into law this past year, the SHIELD Act, which I think will go a long way towards getting our rolls cleaned up. Certainly from the perspective of if there's anyone that's registered that's not eligible to vote, they're not a citizen. I think that is good, but I still believe that we got work to do to remove inactive voters, voters who have moved out of state that just didn't bother to call their county office and say, hey, look, I'm moving, take me off the voter rolls. And then we have electronic sources to verify whether or not someone's living. So we should be more proactive in calling those off, removing those from our rolls. We're not. But you can imagine in a state like California what a big problem that is when you just dump ballots onto the street, essentially. I say that metaphorically, of course. You're mailing them to the address that's in the database, but who knows whose hands they're ending up in. And then, of course, as you know, Rhino, you can just go drop them in a box somewhere, and then they go collect them, which is why it's believed that we won't have the final results for several more days. We may be grilling hot dogs on July 4th and celebrating our 250th birthday before we call the dang elections in California. That's ridiculous. And, of course, I want to point this out. There is a lawsuit before the Supreme Court right now. And it's interesting in that it's the Republican National Committee that's suing, named as the defendant, Mississippi's Secretary of State Michael Watson. And I want to clarify something. And what they're suing over is the ability of the state, under present law, to consider ballots that are postmarked by the election day, the actual in-person election day, but received within, you and I looked it up, was it 5 business days right after election day? And they still can be counted. So the problem in California, as you know, is there's like no limit. It's like, yeah, if they come in within that period of time, just keep on counting. They don't really care. And so the RNC is suing. I want to point something out. I have talked to Secretary of State Michael Watson. Even though he's named as the defendant, that doesn't mean that he agrees with Mississippi's law. He'd be fine if we change the law, but that's got to happen across the street in the Capitol. Change the law to only consider ballots received in hand by Election Day, not just merely postmarked, in hand. He supports that. But because he is Mississippi Secretary of State, in accordance with our legal structure, he is listed as the defendant. And I want to clarify that because there are people who believe, well, gee, Michael Watson wants us to count ballots after Election Day. That's not true. He's responsible for discharging his duties in accordance with law. He's an elected official at the statewide level as the Secretary of State, but he does not have lawmaking authority, and any policies implemented by his or any other agency must align with and not breach, violate, or conflict with law. And that's the way it should work. So here's the request, in my view, Rhino. Hey, legislators, let's change that. You change that, I can assure you Secretary of State Michael Watson would adhere to the law. And he would ensure that our elections apparatus processes elections, conducts elections in accordance with law. That means, hey, circuit clerks, after Election Day, any ballots you get after that, throw them away. Seriously, that's the way it would work. That's what needs to happen. But what really opened up the door more than anything to election irregularity is this mass mail-out of ballots. And the president has said that. He says, look, I'm not opposed to mail-in voting by request with proper excuse, is what it would be called. And we have that in Mississippi. Although you can vote absentee in person in Mississippi for a variety of reasons, but mail-in is limited to a smaller category. You're overseas on duty in the United States military, for example. That obviously we want those folks. If anybody deserves the right to vote, it's the people that wear our nation's uniform that are protecting our right to vote. Yeah, and then there's some others. I can't remember all the categories. If you're infirmed, for example, and you're immobile, well, that makes sense. They deserve the right. But just dumping ballots on the street, like it's California, Utah, Nevada, I'm trying to recall, Rhino, Oregon, Washington, and maybe one more that has this dump of ballots. Essentially, it's all mail-in voting is what it is.
Yeah, it's California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Vermont, and Washington.
Vermont's the other one that I left out. The lone state on the eastern part of the country. Yeah. And again, I want to point out, that just means they mail them to everybody. No requests required. And obviously, that dramatically increases the risk of election irregularity. But look, this deal in California with this mayor's race is, at a minimum, suspicious. At a minimum. And I'm not sure how we get to the bottom of it. What we need to do is pass the SAVE Act. And the other thing we need to do is dramatically improve our information systems to address this issue. Because, and it's really, that's across all of government. You may have seen a report here, just maybe think about it. Recently, a third party says that a significant number of those, not that we're surprised, who sign up for subsidies in the ACA marketplaces, so-called Obamacare, aren't eligible. It's because it's these unscrupulous brokers, literally, that go out on the streets and find homeless people. And are we not now learning, Rhino, that the vast majority of these homeless people are just drug addicts? Right? They're junkies. It's what they are. We need to help them, not give them more drugs. We need to help them. That is the root cause of homelessness. Because it's crazy. They're out on the streets, and behind them you see a help wanted sign, right? They have no interest in that because they're addicted to drugs. But this is a problem, and what they do is they go out, these brokers, and they'll pay them for information to go sign them up in the exchanges. And then, of course, the brokers get a commission because what happens is the exchange, the federal government, pays the insurance company. These are terrible information systems because you're supposed to square it up, as you know, Rhino, on your tax return. It's pretty simple to review Social Security records, IRS records, but that's not happening because of our crappy, I almost used another word you'd have had to bleep out. It's our crappy IT systems. Remember, healthcare.gov, created in 2013 by a company called CGI. It's a Canadian-based consulting company that created this online platform. It, I think, originally estimated about $80 million to create it, and they ended up spending about $1 billion. No surprise there. Originally, the law said every state's got to set one up. And then the landmark case that said, you know what, the individual mandate is upheld, remember that? And that sort of allowed Obamacare to continue. It also said, did the Supreme Court, you can't require the states to spend this money to create these exchanges. And the federal government said, okay, we'll create it. And all but a handful of states created their own. It's been discussed here in Mississippi. Remember, Commissioner Cheney came on and talked about it, but he stopped short. He said, I won't support it until the governor, Tate Reeves, supports it. I'm not sure of the governor's rationale for not, but that's where we are. And the point I'm making here is studies show that states that operate their own exchanges have a far lower rate of fraud and abuse and all this brokering tomfoolery. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Here comes the thunder.
From the Seabird. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. On the C Spire text line, Joey the trucker says if they don't do something about this in California, they never going to fix it because they don't want to ask me. I can't really make out what he's trying to say there, Rhino. But, yeah, I hear you. I think that, again, we need the SAVE Act. And the SAVE Act would go a long way towards addressing this issue, requiring, of course, that the rolls be sanitized and ensure that only, and report that, by the way, to the federal government, and require that only eligible voters exist on the rolls, and to continuously compare the voter rolls to the various databases that have information about citizenship status, death, whether or not you're still alive, your address and location, lots of other pertinent information to ensure that you're who you are, you live where you are eligible to vote in that particular venue, That's what we need. And then, of course, we get rid of this mass mail out. Those, what'd you name, Rhino? 6 states, I think? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 7 maybe? 7 states, including Vermont, maybe Hawaii, maybe 8. I think that may be right. California.
Yeah, it's 8 of them.
8, yeah. So you can't do that anymore. I want to say it's the state of Washington. They don't even have election day. They just mail ballots and you mail them in. So that needs to be cleaned up. I totally agree. We're not capable of conducting all mail-in elections given the weak controls, policies, and technology we have today. So, this scanners look at the signatures, for example. You of course, sign when you register, and that's on file. And so when you mail a ballot in, your signature that you sign on that mail-in ballot is compared electronically. Now, some people question the power of the technology. The technology is pretty good. It can do that. The problem, as you know, Rhino, is that those who operate the technology can control the tolerance parameters to make, it's out of the norm for this person's signature, but that's okay. Essentially, it'd be the same thing. And keep in mind, look, the human eye can make that mistake too. So it's probably more, actually, I would say it's way more accurate to use machines as long as the machines are calibrated properly. That's where a problem comes in. Ballots are scanned, compared against your signature on file. Those should be very tight tolerances. And all that could happen is if it rejected it, is contact the voter and say, hey, look, our system rejected it. Please come in and sign and let's check it out. Or get a notary or something like that. You could address that. But right now, you know this, they set the dang tolerances up in states like California where it almost does. It's not like it's like not doing any check whatsoever. So that's a problem.
A scribble. That's a scribble. Close
exactly.
enough.
That's exactly right. But yeah, you could absolutely calibrate the system such that it would be extremely tight. You know the reason they don't want to do that, Rhino? First, I know that cheat, of course, but your description of those sorts of people made me think about it. It's not my problem, because you know what that would mean? You'd have to work a little bit, right? Here's all the ones that got rejected. You're going to have to go call them and investigate and bring them in. Yeah, or do something to mitigate that, to validate. But that's more work. I'm not exaggerating here at all. Oh, man, I agree. It's certainly a problem. Karen in Oxford, we were having a conversation the other day about the declining birth rate, not only in the country, but in the world. And Karen shared some thoughts on that. And I'm reading it, Karen. I can't go through all that, of course, but I certainly get your point. And it's interesting that I spent a little time this weekend just researching this a little further because there are lots of third parties, reputable organizations that have done some surveys and polling on this to find out where people are. And in general, the resonating concern is uncertainty. I'm a little, I guess, confused by that, if not intrigued by that. And Rhino, it kind of goes back to something I mention a lot on the show, which is I think we've created too much what I call incumbency, just meaning that so many people, young people today, never really had to worry a whole lot about just the basic necessities of life. And we have made it the ones that don't want to procreate, okay? So we've made it such that they've had a pretty rosy life up to that point. And that, I think, is causing a lot of people to say, oh, wait, now I got to go out on my own? It's pretty uncertain out there. Do I know I'm going to have a job and income? Man, well, generations before them had those concerns as well. They were just maybe a little more hardened, perhaps. It's just a theory on my part. And so I really do think this idea of what I call incumbency. So get this, just looking at some countries and their birth rates, it's amazing. We're at 1.6. We need 2.1 to replace those who pass on. Otherwise, literally, eventually, that would take over and we'd run out of people. Elon Musk has been warning about this. But, man, South Korea, home of one of the world's lowest fertility rates, 0.8. That's half of ours, which is already upside down. So a construction company over there, the Boo Young Group, in 2024, offered 100 million Korean won. That's their currency. That equates to about $68,000 U.S. dollars today. That's twice South Korea's per capita income. Their per capita income comes in at about 35,000, 34,000. By the way, our per capita income in this country is $73,000. So they were paying employees $68,000, double the average income in the country, to have a baby, employees. So they reported last year in 2025, 36 births. That's a 60% increase. So they also help cover medical expenses, and eventually they have a fund that pays somewhat for college tuition. That's incredible. If they have a third child, they can choose between the 100 million won payment and guaranteed permanent housing, the cash or a house. So that's a private company. I support their right to do so, taking matters into their own hand here. But uncertainty, Karen, is what I'm finding is like the number one thing that those who are in the childbearing ages are saying. I'm not certain, I'm not confident that my situation will be stable to rear a child, that something could interfere with it. Interesting. But it's a problem. Italy's also got, I can't find the number, but it's like a 0.5 or something. It's ridiculous, the birth rate in Italy. And Europe in general just has low birth rates. So the message here is, the takeaway is, our global population is aging. We're getting older, and we're not producing as many young people. And that's a problem that does need to be addressed. I'm not for government paying people, and honestly, they all say that's not going to change. That's a one-time payment. That doesn't fix the long-term uncertainty concern. So it's just volatility in general. Darren in Jackson says, well, that plan worked in the 2020 presidential election, so why not use it again in California? Well, it's actually, you're right, Darren, it's in 2020, during the COVID, is when these states adopted the all mail-in voting process. And, yeah, you knew it right off the bat that was problematic, again, because these ballots are just literally floating around all over the place. They get seized by unscrupulous parties who just fill them out or go around, doing all this ballot harvesting. And let me help you fill your ballot out. No, fill it out like this, right? Show them a piece of paper. Okay, check. Taking advantage of people who aren't knowledgeable, and in particular our infirmed elderly, seniors, in nursing homes, literally. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I got rice cooking in the microwave. Got a 3-day beard I don't plan to shave. And it's a goofy thing, but I just gotta say, hey, I'm a-doing alright. Yeah, I think I'll make me some homemade soup. feeling pretty good, and that's the truth. It's neither drink nor drug induced, no, I'm just
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Governor Tate Reeves has ordered flags to be lowered at half-staff from sunrise to sunset tomorrow in Rankin and Simpson counties, and that's in memory, of course, and recognition of Representative Price Wallace, who passed away abruptly last week. Governor Reeves says Representative Price Wallace's commitment to Mississippi will always be remembered. I completely agree. Man, we're going to miss him. What, just like I said, just a great guy he was. He not only was an effective legislator whom everybody liked, he never met a stranger. If you think about, Rhino, that Mississippi hospitality that we're so well known for, he personified it. No doubt about that. He will be missed. Thank you, Governor Reeves, for ordering the flags to be flown at half-staff, sunrise to sunset tomorrow in the counties that Representative Wallace represented, Rankin and Simpson counties. Let's get you caught up on the brackets. Congratulations to the Ole Miss Rebels in dramatic fashion. They're headed, State and Georgia. What's really crazy about this, as you know, is that the way the brackets shaped up for the regionals, the super regionals, Mississippi State is probably among the top 3 or 4 teams in the country, but Georgia may be the best. They just ran into a buzzsaw, but unfortunately Mississippi State will be at home, and I'm so looking forward to both them and Ole Miss being in the regionals once Ole Miss punched its ticket. So on one side of the bracket, it's West Virginia taking on Troy. How about Troy? In the College World Series, North Carolina defeated Southern Cal. I didn't see that one coming, but they did, and they will be taking on Ole Miss. I think that's Friday night. So those are the 4 teams, West Virginia, Troy, North Carolina, Ole Miss. On that side of the bracket, 8 teams, of course, total in the College World Series. On the other side, it's Oklahoma, Kansas, St. John's, and Alabama, both of whom got to finish up today to see who makes it. Now, Texas defeated Oregon, so they're headed into the World Series, of course. And Georgia, as you know, defeated Mississippi State in 2 games. Bunch of scoring. That's a small part. They were lighting it up with the dingers. Incredible. So Texas will take on Georgia in the College World Series. Oklahoma and Kansas, St. John's and Alabama still competing to see who goes. So if I'm looking at this correctly, Rhino, we could end up with an all-SEC bracket. 4 of the teams on that side, all on the same side, Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas, and Georgia. And then on the other side, Ole Miss, the lone SEC team, along with the others on that side of the bracket, West Virginia, Troy, and North Carolina. So how about that? 5 of 8 from the SEC. We play a little baseball here in the South, don't we?
Yeah, I want to say it was, 20-plus years ago now, where they tried to set it up to where the SEC all wound up on one side of the bracket so that you didn't wind up with an all-SEC World Series.
Yeah.
And
good luck.
yeah, it just didn't work out that way because there's not enough room on one side of the bracket.
Correct. We're too powerful, too strong, and I think that will continue as the number of conferences shrink. They're likely to have the so-called super conferences. I see that in our future. It's already headed in that direction. On the C Spire text line, is there anything in the legislature about early voting, such as the 2 weekends before the election or something? That's from Alan. Yeah, Alan, actually, there has been legislation proposed. Senator Jeremy England has done that in each of the past 2 sessions, but it did not make its way out of, I don't think, committee even, Rhino, as I recall. I can't remember if it went to the floor in the Senate or not. So we do not have early voting, that to be, of course, distinguished from absentee voting. Early voting means you don't need an excuse. You go vote just like you do now, except that starts within, like 60 days or something, I think is what the proposal was. And you go to the circuit clerk's office and you cast a ballot, which gets scanned just as you do on Election Day. That's early voting. No excuse required. Absentee voting in Mississippi, you got to have an excuse. Now, it's not real restrictive with respect to the excuses, and you do, I believe, sign an affidavit attesting to said excuse, but nobody goes, there's no excuse police out there.
It's the honor system.
Right. I was shocked to find out when I went down the rabbit hole researching like Florida. Everybody points to Florida. Well, first, they don't allow the counting of ballots for many days after, the way California does, after the election day. Secondly, Florida is unique in that they allow the absentee ballots to be counted as received. In Mississippi, for example, we don't count them until 7 o'clock when the polls close on Election Day, but we don't get a lot. Coming right back. Fox News, SuperTalk News.
Your of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Thanks so much for joining us today. It is a Monday. That means it's a short show. Ricky Matthews, Super Talk Outdoors, on with you at 12:05. But right now, it's Prentiss Harrell, Circuit Court Judge, the 15th Judicial District of Mississippi, involved heavily in the drug courts in Mississippi. Judge, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So tell us, first of all, what exactly is a drug court? What sort of cases do they hear that wouldn't be heard in, like, the standard circuit courts?
It is heard in circuit court.
Okay.
You have to be a felon before you come to me. You have to have committed a felon action, and that carries prison time. The only thing we do is felony matters. Matter of fact, I start a murder trial next week. We do a lot of those.
Okay.
I have 5 counties. I'm an old-fashioned circuit rider. My predecessor would have rode a horse and wagon and stayed in boarding houses. I've got a nice car. I can go home at night. But basically, I am a circuit rider, and it's a long way from the top of my district, which is the Louisiana line. That's the bottom, my bad.
Okay.
All the way up to New Hebron, which is not but about 30 miles as the crow flies from Jackson. And it's a wide county. Marion, Pearl River, Lamar. We have had Lawrence and Jeff Davis for 5. Redistricting took 2 away from us, but it added us Walthall. So we still have a large geographical district. And as I say, I travel from district to district. And I listen to Super Talk. I've heard you some, but it's only when I'm going from courthouse to courthouse.
I understand.
But the answer to your question is the 15th Intervention Court, Circuit Intervention Court. If you commit a felony, you come before me. And when 20 years ago, and I can tell you because I've been on the bench that long, but 20 years ago, if you smoked a joint or did a minor infraction with drugs, you got prison time. Many times 10 years.
Gotcha.
And unfortunately, and I'll tell you in a minute, I'd like to tell you a little bit, we're the most incarcerated state in the union. We got 19,000 people today. And I'm extremely proud, and I'm bragging, please forgive me, but I'm chair of the Oversight Committee for the Department of Corrections. And when you've got 19,000 people incarcerated, that's a matter.
Yeah.
And then we have another 8,500 that work there. And we're trying to get those numbers down, but it is difficult. And we do want my first responsibility as a circuit court judge is gatekeeper. The most important responsibility is to keep our society safe from people that we're fearful of, that will hurt us. And there are people like that. We all have to come to that conclusion. There are people we need to be nervous about, and we have to put them in time out often. But the drug court was an intervention court. That we are even call it now intervention court. My dear friend Keith Starrett started the first one over in Macomb, Mississippi in 96. I started mine in 2007, and when I got elected in 2006. And it had some opposition because we thought it was soft on crime. But it is a 3-year, very structured program. The primary focus of it is to teach discipline, and it does take 3 years. They have to do an awful lot of things. If they don't have a GED, they have to get one unless they're impaired. If they have to work, we don't allow them sitting on the front porch. If they have to work, if they don't get a job within a reasonable period of time, and we determine what their reasonable length of time is, they're put on community service. They're drug tested every week, many of them, and drugs are a scourge. I'd like to lay a foundation there. There's a lot of people in our state that don't understand the scourge that drugs are in our community. It's another society, but it is out there. We drug test them every week. Last week, I make the rounds twice a month. I see them. I look at everybody, talk to them, ask them a little litany of questions, which is very brief. We don't talk long, but I look at them, talk to them. Are you clean? That's the first blush, starting off. And then, are you still working? They tell me they're still working. They tell me how long they've been clean. And they love to tell me, Judge, I've been clean 365 days now. I've been clean 700 days now. And we believe that they tell me that I can be clean for 30 days, then I can be clean for 31 days. When they first come in, we have an orientation. They have to read books. We have a list of books they're required to read. They have to know and memorize the 5 steps of problem solving. Most of them never heard that. They have to give me a 5-year plan. Where are you going to be in 5 years and how are you going to get there? And we try not to accept fluff. How are you going to get there? Where are you going to get a job to work there? At any given time, right now, I think Casey just told me on the way up this morning, we have 25 people in Votech and the community colleges, mostly Pearl River because they serve us. But they have, I think, 42 Votech trainings, and we take advantage of that. We take a serious advantage. And Dr. Breerwood at Pearl River is very good to us. We have 4 or 5 people at any given time, always in academics. He helps us there. We've had several young people that are in their 20s that did not know they were smart till they went and checked out. I've got several people that made the dean's list, the president's list, and I'm so proud of them.
So tell us, how do they get to you?
They commit a felony. They do a felony because 80% of the property crimes that we have in the state of Mississippi, and we can prove this, were for the purpose of go buy drugs. They steal a gun, they break in a house, they break in a shed, they get whatever they can do, they take it, they hawk it, they use the money, they buy drugs.
Okay.
And then they get caught, naturally, and most of them are addictions, full-scale addictions. Now, we have a great ability to send them to multiple rehabs. Yeah. We've got multiple rehabs that are good to us, and we try to be receptive. Okay. But we generally,
as a judge, you can order that, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that is the term of normally, let's say a person gets 5 years. He did a crime. It's 5-year term. I give him 5 years. I can then promptly suspend it, conditioned on that you finish my drug court, which is a 3-year program. And the 3-year, I think, is critically important, not 2 years, not 1 year, because it does take time. Okay. I've learned as I've gotten older that most things require time. And so we put them in there for 3 years. Most of them serve a minimum of 2.5, and it is a staged up a stage, up a stage, up a stage, until you graduate. We're having a graduation this Friday. I'll have 750 to 1,000 people there. It's a very well received. A lot of people come to it. And I remember a couple of years ago when Tommy Duff was my keynote speaker, and he was. I've had the governor as keynote speaker because he understands. I've had both of your senators as keynote speakers. It draws a crowd. And this time, Mike Ezel is going to be my keynote speaker. And I might add, he called us and asked if he could do it. And I said, yeah, I'd love for you to do it. Because he is a good speaker. He was the former sheriff. He's had a lot of issues with drugs down in Jackson County also.
So these folks who are in your court, you said they committed felony if they're in front of you. Are they incarcerated?
No, they are at the time they come before me.
That's what I mean,
90% of the time when they're in front of me, they're wearing orange or yellow.
Okay.
They're in shackles.
So they've already had their trials, been convicted, serving their time.
Or pled. They either pled or got. Most of the time they plead. I'd say 90% of the time they plead.
Okay.
And their family wants to get them in drug court if they have a family. There's a boatload of them that don't have a family.
Yeah.
But the ones that have stuck with them that long, they say drug court because our record is pretty good.
Record as far as rehabbing them and returning them?
Rate.
Yeah.
We rate most, like the Department of Corrections has a recidivism rate report card. How many people get out of jail and go outside and come back? Unfortunately, in the past, the recidivism rate for the Department of Corrections, but we're trying to improve that.
Gotcha.
And I think we're working on it. But it is about 90% go back. 90% go back. The recidivism rate in drug court across the state has been in the past, and we've got statistics to prove it, at AOC, Office of the Courts, and that is 5%.
Okay,
that's a pretty good difference.
So are they going out and getting gainful employment?
We require that they be gainfully employed within 3 weeks, and if they don't, I'll make them do community service.
Okay,
and that's sort of motivational.
Yeah.
Yes, and as I started off with, we don't let them sit on the porch.
I understand.
Now, unless they're helping their mom and daddy, or they got a child that they have to care for, there's always exceptions.
Yeah.
And if they do have an excellent exception to get a job, they're required to get a job.
Okay, gotcha. So,
by the way, I will show you this how much they will have paid in fines and fees in a second on the graduates. It's a lot because they have to pay their fines and fees before they graduate. Well, we generally, right before graduation days, have a big jump.
Got to get square.
That's right.
Yeah, I get it. Well, we got a break right now. We can continue the conversation on the other side, but think about this. I guess a lot of reporting indicates that we need more drug courts, that this is a better approach than just locking people up and just saying, hey, look, you committed a drug crime, you were going to lock you up. Then you get out after you've served your time and you're back doing it again, right? The recidivism problem you were talking about. We got Judge Prentiss Harrell in the Element Wealth studio. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
We are back in the Element Wealth studio. We're visiting with Prentiss Harrell, Circuit Court Judge, 15th Judicial District of Mississippi. So, Judge, before we went to break, there's been reports that these drug courts are effective, but that we need more of them. We don't have enough of them. And what often happens, correct me if I'm wrong here, is we convict under our various laws that are used to criminalize certain drug activity, and we send them off to prison, and if they don't have a drug court, they're not getting rehabilitated, and then we release them when they've served their time, and they go back to the same habits.
Yes, sir, that's absolutely correct, and it's unfortunate. But it has been historically what we've done, and it is, you're accurate, that would be correct. The drug court is a great intervention to that. It does teach them, as I previously said, discipline. I'm told by some psychologists that one of the hardest words in the English vocabulary is the word no. And they have to learn to say no to a feel-good drug, because many of the drugs that they use, particularly meth, is a feel-good. And they have to have that discipline that most of them have never developed over time. The reason we have these different matters that I've already spoke about is to develop discipline. I made them wrote. I apologize, I get tongue twisted, but the book by the Navy SEAL, who's the president of Texas now, that wrote Did You Make Your Bed? That was required reading for many of our people, and we required it. But it does teach little things like Did You Make Your Bed this morning? And when they graduate, we hope that we have instilled some discipline in their life, so our structure, and the structure comes from timeliness, doing things. But you are right, unless they're taught those things, and it takes time to do it, then they will fail. Drugs are a big scourge.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And there's, the business person in me always thinks about the economic costs associated with this to society overall.
Last year alone, fines collected in my class this year, we will have collected $106,000 just from my people. The statistics from AOC will say that we say every county over 3 million, and we're self-supportive.
Well, I think that's great. I'm thinking in terms of, when you're locked up in prison, you're not actually out working and contributing and providing value to society.
The budget for the Mississippi Department of Corrections, and I would say add to it right now because Commissioner Kane's doing such a really good job, but he's making people marketable. For many years, when I first started, we'd give them a bus ticket and $20 and say, go be a good boy. And that didn't work. Mm-hmm. They would go to their family, and they'd call their family, and I've seen, because I can verify it, that their family would say, don't come home. You caused us enough trouble. You go somewhere else. Well, they couldn't get a job. They were not employable. They didn't have a marketable skill. They were hands, basically. And what happens? They go right back. Now, if one finishes at Department of Corrections, we've got a welding truck, long, very long, and they take it to various other prisons. If you learn to weld, Ingalls will hire you in, and I think they've got a raise since then, but it was $65,000 a year. Well, that's life-changing for many of my people.
Sure.
$65,000 a year, and they'll hire them even if they're a felon record. So it is a lot of good things going on, but it's in the works, and it does take a while.
Yeah. So have any of them ever come back to you, Judge, and just expressed gratitude to you for getting them on the right track?
That's probably one of the most rewarding things that happens to me. I was in a store in Picayune, Mississippi recently, and a girl that I had put in that was living in a car and not doing good things, if you get my drift, and it was a bad situation. She completed the drug court. She did extremely well. She learned those disciplinary matters. She was now manager of a nice store. And she said, Judge, I've been hoping you'll come in here. I can't wait to tell you what I want to tell you. And I said, what do you want to tell me? She said, Judge, come into my office. And that was the statement. And she was a hardcore drug addict. And now she is successful, and it was so good to see.
That's so good.
And I saw another man.
Come into my office.
That was her saying that she had said, I want to say this to you. And it was a nice office.
That is awesome.
I went to another person that saw me in that same store. He was a very professional looking man, nice looking. He had come through the drug court 10 years ago, and he's now an important guy at NASA. And NASA's a big deal. He's doing well down there. And they give really extreme, hard background checks. He passed. He got in. He was doing great. I was so proud of him. But those kind of things are rewarding. Are they? Absolutely.
That's great. So do any ever push back and say, I just don't want to do this?
Oh, yes, sir. And they have to be, yeah, you do. They have to understand, yes, they do. Because many of them don't. And the truth is, if they go to prison for 3 years and they're good people and don't join gangs and don't get in fights, they'll probably get out in a year and a half. Well, they can do that. But I tell them, you don't want to go to the pen. And once they see that they can go to school, become a marketable skill through a VOTEC and or a academic, and we've got many of them who've been well in academics that did not know they were smart. Matter of fact, I had a girl recently that transferred to Purdue, and she was making the president's list at Purdue, and she was one of our kids. I think and she was smart but didn't know it.
How do we stack up with other states in this area?
I can't answer that. I've never really I know that the first drug court in the United States was started in, of all places, Miami. And Judge Sterrett found out about it, and he emulated it and went down there and looked at it and came back. But we now have them all over the state.
Okay.
Now, it's got to be a mission of the heart from the judge. And there's some judges that might say, I don't want to do that because, in fact, it will take 25% of your time, and you don't get paid extra, and I am not against that.
Judge, I'm sure that you encounter cases where this scourge of drugs, as you accurately describe it, is causing problems within a family, is interfering with a family.
I can absolutely attest. I have seen multiple pretty girls become ugly girls because meth, you're going to lose your teeth. You're going to get skinny as a rail. You're going to leave your family. You're going to leave your children. How does that happen? I cannot answer that. Why does a drug cause a family to divide and the family member that leaves say, I want the drugs worse than I do my family? But it happens. It divides families all the time. And when families end up getting out from under that enslavement of drugs, and it is an enslavement. I've seen how it does. It's horrible, but addiction is that strong.
Are you finding that there's the constant release of new approaches, treatments, therapies, et cetera, management approaches that can help folks with this habit?
Yes, sir, we do. Absolutely. There's always newfound ways. But there's no substitute for the old-fashioned term of getting up and making your bed and learning to go to bed at night on an early date so you'll feel good tomorrow, self-discipline. And self-discipline, I think, has to be taught early on.
Yeah.
And that book that the alluded to a minute ago about the SEAL that wrote, Did You Make Your Bed?
Yeah.
It starts early. And when you're 25 years old or 30 years old and you're trying to reenact discipline in your life, it does take extra effort, but I can prove that it can occur.
Yeah, humans like structure, but sometimes
They do.
you sort of have to compel people to enter into that structured environment.
And that's why I think the drug court can be or is successful. I do have and I hate to use such vernacular language, but I will. I've got a brick bat over their head. If they misbehave, I can send them to prison.
Yeah.
If they will if they continually break the rules. I sent 2 girls this past Friday to prison. They would not do it. They just will not. And but our recidivism rate of that is about 5%. So I'm real proud of that. But there are people that says, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not. And after a fashion, you say, okay, I can send you to prison. And I do. And they can get the balance of their time, whatever that is. That might be a little, it might be a lot. But they know that I can. And during the probationary period that they're in drug court, that's where you also have that brick bat because they're on probation. They can't drink a beer. If they drink a beer and they do it twice, first time I'll put them in a community service, but it's graduated. Second time might be overnight in jail. They won't want a beer so bad. Now, I tell them on a regular basis, when you get free, if you want to drink a beer, I don't care. Have at it. But right now, you're on probation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the discipline.
So that's a substitute. That's the discipline where you've got the ability to do that. You can be sweet talk to them all you want to, but you do also have to have a little discipline at times.
Well, you're so right. Just at my age and my life's experiences, I guess what I found out is sometimes you got to do the stuff you don't like to do to enjoy the things you like to do.
I tell them that all the time, particularly the ones that are students and academic, go to bed early, get up early, make your bed, study hard.
100%. Judge Prentiss Harrell, Circuit Court Judge, 15th Judicial District of Mississippi, talking about drug courts. Appreciate it, Judge. Thanks for coming in. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you for allowing me.
We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the seat MidDays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, ooh, did you ever believe that I could leave you standing out in the cold? through to the very depths of my soul, yeah. Oh, oh, baby, I just want to show you what a clear view there is from every bend in the road. Now listen. Oh, whoa, whoa. As I was relieved before you too, honey, as you would for me. Oh, I will show your love.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. Thank you for joining us. That was an interesting conversation, and you can tell Rhino the judge is certainly passionate about what he's doing, and I would say he's providing a valuable service to society, because I do think that most of these people that are addicted, the vast majority, want to end the addiction, but they need some coaxing. They need some structure. They need some guidance. They need some help. They need some deterrence. They need some compulsion. Now, I hear you. I know you're kind of thinking about it. There's some who don't, just want to continue that. I submit that's the people on the dang streets in L.A. and San Francisco. They're everywhere. I'm not picking on them. They just have an outsized number of them because they basically said, come on here and set up, right? And Spencer Pratt, the Republican running for mayor in L.A., focused on that. You remember he got a question we talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago about solar panels. He said, I'm trying to get the feces off the street. That's pretty fundamental before we start talking about solar panels. Only liberals would consider that a higher priority issue, right? Because we all know they genuflect at the altar of climate change and race and radical gender ideology.
It's because they're constantly living in la-la land.
So frustrating.
They haven't put their feet on reality soil in years.
It is crazy.
If they ever did.
It's totally crazy.
The vast majority of them just take the naivete of youth and continue it into adulthood without learning any life lessons.
So here's an example. Man, this is incredible. Senator Tammy Duckworth. We're talking about a United States senator. She from the great state of Illinois, I believe, right, Rhino? The land of Lincoln. So she posted on Twitter a photo of herself. And this is her official account now, and it says, Happy Pride, because June, why do we got a whole month dedicated to someone's sexual orientation? Stupid. So she has Happy Pride, and it's got the rainbow flag next to it, the little graphics. But get this, Rhino. She is in a school, because you can see youngsters with backpacks in the background, and she's waving and smiling, and she has a shirt on that has imprinted across the chest of the shirt, you can pee next to me. This is a U.S. senator. You're sick.
In fairness, I don't think she's ever been accused of being the brightest bulb in the fixture.
Dumb as a board. And it's a U.S. senator. I just couldn't believe that. With kids in the background. And she's proud of this. I'm sorry for yelling. But man, that all the things we need to work on in this country, and that's what she's worried about. Where you pee. James Tallarico, this is hilarious. I don't know if you saw this. He, of course, the Democrat nominee for the United States Senate in the great state of Texas. He's about to get exposed because, let's just say he's been a bit duplicitous. He made some statements in the past. He's making statements now, plus actions. One of those was that he was a vegan, proudly. And recently he's realized, that's probably not a good position in a state known for its cattle industry. And poultry industry as well, of course. And I'm sure there are pig farms as well, and whatever other meat. But There's a photo of him in a restaurant where it's being reported that his team is forcing him to eat meat in front of reporters to prove that he's Texas tough. So I'm looking at a photo of him, and he's dining with, just looks like a random citizen, and you can tell it's a kind of wood walls and wood tables. It's a barbecue place. And in front of him is a pan, looks like kind of family style, and it's got ribs and sausage and cornbread and other baked beans and other types of food you would eat with barbecue. And he's holding up a rib, and the look on his face, which shows his jaw a little expanded because he's got food in it. The look on his face is one that says, I want to puke. He's like having a hard time digesting what is probably delicious barbecue in Texas. This guy is a wacko, and he is running for U.S. Senate and well-funded. Texas tough. Unbelievable.
But if meat is murder, then obviously he cares more about getting elected than murder.
That's exactly right. Because you know this, these politicians, every word, every action calibrated with an eye towards the next election. And then you've got this candidate that is running for, I believe, mayor, of Carrollton, Texas, from Pakistan, as Barack Obama would say, with the fake accent, Pakistan. Remember that? Zol Mohammed. So here's what Zol Mohammed said. He's a Muslim. He said, I don't support the United States. No vet, says Zol Mohammed, I'm quoting, has made any sacrifice. No vet. I want to make that clear. I do not support the U.S. military. No, I do not support the United States. I look down on both entities. I want to make that clear. Running for mayor in Texas. You saw how he got surrounded by some patriots who shouted him down with USA, USA. So this now has me fully in support of changing law, maybe at the federal level, to impose it on the state level. I'm not sure if that's possible, but certainly we can do it here in Mississippi. Unless you're born in this country, you can't run for any office. I'm ready for that. You can't just be a naturalized citizen, which means you immigrated into this country legally and you became a citizen. No, I want it to be like the president. You got to be born here. I don't want to turn this country into the UK or France. I'm just flabbergasted by this. We have a candidate for mayor who says, I don't like the United States. I don't support the United States. How can this happen in this country? What's wrong with these wackos? We can't do it, man. We got to figure out something.
Good people have sat on their hands for what seems like generations now for fear of being called mean things by stupid people. And through the availability of information that can readily shoot down the stupidity of the people that would call you mean things.
Totally true.
We're coming into a new time with a new paradigm where your feelings don't mean a whole hell of a lot, especially when your feelings are based on being stupid, like the vast majority of every stinking liberal drawing breath right now.
They are all leaning into this stuff. And this is what happens when you prioritize illegals over Americans. And when you take great satisfaction in getting illegals off the hook for committing crime. And then you vilify the American victims. Incredible. The SAVE Act, by the way, had a chance of being part of a budget reconciliation bill, meaning it could pass with a simple majority in the Senate, except 4 Republicans voted against it. Tom Tillis, Lisa Murkowski, Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, because they don't like Trump.
We used to have politicians that feared being tarred and feathered.
Oh, my gosh. This is ridiculous. Well, we're at the segment where I'm going to depart. I'm going to introduce the president of C Spire today at my Rotary. And by the way, I will be out the next 2 days. I'm honored. I'm privileged to be a judge in the Miss Mississippi Teen Contest. I will be back Thursday and Friday, but tomorrow are interviews during the show. Be back with you on Thursday. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
Up a Mississippi. You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I got rice cooking in the microwave. Got a 3-day beard I don't plan to shave. And it's a goofy thing, but I just gotta say, hey, I'm a-doing alright. Yeah, I think I'll make me some homemade soup. Feeling pretty good, and that's the truth. It's neither drink nor drug induced. No, I'm just.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Governor Tate Reeves has ordered flags to be lowered at half-staff from sunrise to sunset tomorrow in Rankin and Simpson counties, and that's in memory, of course, and recognition of Representative Price Wallace, who passed away abruptly last week. Governor Reeves says Representative Price Wallace's commitment to Mississippi will always be remembered. I completely agree. Man, we're going to miss him. What, just like I said, just a great guy he was. He not only was an effective legislator whom everybody liked. He never met a stranger. If you think about, Rhino, that Mississippi hospitality that we're so well known for, he personified it. No doubt about that. He will be missed. Thank you, Governor Reeves, for ordering the flags to be flown at half-staff, sunrise to sunset tomorrow in the counties that Representative Wallace represented, Rankin and Simpson counties. Let's get you caught up on the brackets. Congratulations to the Ole Miss Rebels in dramatic fashion. They're headed, State and Georgia. What's really crazy about this, as you know, is that the way the brackets shaped up for the regionals, the super regionals, Mississippi State is probably among the top 3 or 4 teams in the country, but Georgia may be the best. They just ran into a buzzsaw. But unfortunately, Mississippi State will be at home, and I'm so looking forward to both them and Ole Miss being in the regionals once Ole Miss punched its ticket. So on one side of the bracket, it's West Virginia taking on Troy. How about Troy in the College World Series? North Carolina defeated Southern Cal. I didn't see that one coming, but they did, and they will be taking on Ole Miss. I think that's Friday night. So those are the 4 teams, West Virginia, Troy, North Carolina, Ole Miss. On that side of the bracket, 8 teams, of course, total in the College World Series. On the other side, it's Oklahoma, Kansas, St. John's, and Alabama, both of whom got to finish up today to see who makes it. Now, Texas defeated Oregon, so they're headed into the World Series, of course. And Georgia, as you know, defeated Mississippi State in 2 games. Bunch of scoring. That's a small park. They were lighting it up with the dingers. Incredible. So Texas will take on Georgia in the College World Series. Oklahoma and Kansas, St. John's and Alabama still competing to see who goes. So if I'm looking at this correctly, Rhino, we could end up with an all-SEC bracket. 4 of the teams on that side, all on the same side, Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas, and Georgia. And then on the other side, Ole Miss, the lone SEC team, along with the others on that side of the bracket, West Virginia, Troy, in North Carolina. So how about that? 5 of 8 from the SEC. We play a little baseball here in the South, don't we?
Yeah, I want to say it was, 20-plus years ago now, where they tried to set it up to where the SEC all wound up on one side of the bracket so that you didn't wind up with an all-SEC World Series.
Yeah.
And
good luck.
Yeah, it just didn't work out that way because there's not enough room on one side of the bracket.
Correct. We're too powerful, too strong, and I think that will continue as the number of conferences shrink. They're likely to have the so-called super conferences. I see that in our future. It's already headed in that direction. On the C Spire text line, is there anything in the legislature about early voting, such as the 2 weekends before the election or something? That's from Alan. Yeah, Alan, actually, there has been legislation proposed. Senator Jeremy England has done that in each of the past 2 sessions, but it did not make its way out of, I don't think, committee even, Rhino, as I recall. I can't remember if it went to the floor in the Senate or not. So we do not have early voting, that to be, of course, distinguished from absentee voting. Early voting means you don't need an excuse. You go vote just like you do now, except that starts within, 60 days or something, I think is what the proposal was. And you go to the circuit clerk's office and you cast a ballot, which gets scanned just as you do on Election Day. That's early voting. No excuse required. Absentee voting in Mississippi, you got to have an excuse. Now, it's not real restrictive with respect to the excuses, and you do, I believe, sign an affidavit attesting to said excuse, but nobody goes, there's no excuse police out there.
It's the honor system.
Right. I was shocked to find out when I went down the rabbit hole researching Florida. Everybody points to Florida. Well, first, they don't allow the counting of ballots for many days after, the way California does, after the election day. Secondly, Florida is unique in that they allow the absentee ballots to be counted as received. In Mississippi, for example, we don't count them until 7 o'clock when the polls close on Election Day, but we don't get a lot. Coming right back. Fox News, SuperTalk News.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.